kilometers. So it's going to be a difficult something that has to be done to find out exactly what happened, because as you mentioned earlier, there are different people are saying different things. Yes, we shot him down, but we thought it was a military plane. No, we didn't shoot him down, and accusing the Russians accusing the Ukrainians of shooting it down. So you have to have an independent investigation to find out exactly what happened.
Well, that's very true. But, Andrei, we also understand that Russia has been accused of an arms treaty violation by the United States, and it's one which was signed back in the 80s. So could you tell us more about that?
Yes, Washington has accused Russia of violating the 1987 intermediate force reductions. Basically, the missiles that have a range of 500 to 5,500 kilometers, and they basically have eliminated for the first time a whole class of weapons. About 2,700 of those missiles were destroyed by the United States and Russia. Now, the Soviet Union. Now, the United States has accused Russia of violating the treaty. The treaty stipulates that it should not test flight new middle-range missiles, which is exactly what Russia has done. So, but they, of course, are saying we did not violate the treaty. So go figure again. Once in a while, you have to find an independent observer to find. But in this case, it still needs to be. It can be resolved between Moscow and Washington.
Well, fingers crossed on that one. Thank you so much, Andrei, for joining me on the program.
My pleasure.
Well, a day after a terrible landslide claimed 30 lives in India and buried 200 people, rescue workers in the western part of the country are working to locate survivors. But more than 36 hours after Wednesday morning's landslide, chances of finding more people alive appear slim as heavy rains dampens efforts to search for the scores of people presumed trapped under the mud and debris.
Rescuers in India were dug through swirling mud today to uncover dozens of submerged homes and find more than 150 people swallowed up by a landslide that flattened almost an entire village, with the confirmed death toll at 25. 4 earth-moving machines scooped out mud spread over an area the size of a football pitch. The frame of a motorbike floated by on a torrent of mud, an indication that bodies could well be underneath. Small streams flowed into the area from surrounding hills. Shocked by the extent of devastation, Interior Minister Rajnath Singh announced financial help for the victims from the federal government. Residents of over 33 houses are trapped under the debris that can be seen here. You cannot say after looking at it that houses ever existed here. The hillside above the village collapsed on Wednesday, and heavy rain raised fears of another landslide. The local school, one of the only roofed buildings to survive, was put into service as a makeshift shelter for rescue workers, while police were stationed in trucks to provide a backup. 9 teams of rescue workers worked through the night, but incessant rain, mud, and poor communications in the remote area slowed their efforts to make their way into engulfed thatched huts and brick houses. Work was stalled during daytime today pertaining to heavy rainfall, but had resumed in the afternoon. Heavy downpour was on since 8:30 in the morning, due to which mud was falling. Thus, he had halted rescue work for the safety of the people present here. Now, rain is slowing down, so we'll start the work again. Rainy season downpours, though vital for Indians' agriculture, can often bring disaster. Unprecedented rain in June last year wreaked havoc across Uttarakhand state in the Himalayas, causing rivers and lakes to burst their banks, inundating towns and villages, and killing thousands.
Well, the world today takes a break, and when we come back, we'll turn our attention to a growing concern. That is the spread of the Ebola virus. Sierra Leone has declared a state of emergency. We'll have details in just a moment. Glad to have you back. You're watching The World Today on Channels Television. We're coming to you live from our studio here in Lagos, Nigeria. Now, even though cases of Ebola virus have only been reported in African countries, the union leader of the UK Border, Immigration and Customs staff feel very unprepared to deal with people coming to the UK with possible cases of the virus. The Immigration Service Union's General Secretary, Lucy Morton, said her members need more information on this threat. However, the border force insists staff have been given guidance on how to identify and deal with suspected cases. In the meantime, UK Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond says the government is taking the current outbreak and threat to the UK very seriously.
Well, in the meeting we've just had, we had a explanation from the public health officials and from the scientists about the disease and about the outbreak in West Africa. We've looked at how we are coordinating with our French and American colleagues under the World Health Organization. We've considered what additional measures the UK could take to help control the outbreak in West Africa. And we've also looked at what measures we need to put in place on a precautionary basis in case any UK nationals in West Africa should become affected by the disease.
Well, it is an absolutely horrible disease, but it's very important to say that we have very experienced scientists and doctors in the NHS. We have a lot of experience of dealing with diseases that are very dangerous. We've got the Royal Free Infectious Disease Unit, we've got the Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and the risk of this disease spreading fast is much lower in the UK because of that expertise. So we are taking precautionary measures, we are looking at our capability, but we're very confident that we have very good people in the NHS, very experienced people who would be ready to deal with anything if it were to arrive in the UK.
Well, no country is taking anything for granted concerning the spread of the Ebola virus, and that includes Sierra Leone. In that country, the president has declared a public health emergency to curb the outbreak. As a result, the epicenters of the outbreak in the east will be quarantined and asked security forces to enforce this measure. The UN has confirmed that more than 670 people in West Africa have died of Ebola since February, 224 of them in Sierra Leone.
U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the State Department and colleagues of an American doctor are speaking out after 33-year-old Dr. Kent Brantley, who was working for a relief organization in Liberia's capital, tested positive for the tropical disease Ebola. The charity, a second American, whom it named as Nancy Rightball, had also tested positive. She was helping a team treating Ebola patients at a case management center in Monrovia. Brantley, a medical director at one of the country's 2 treatment centers run by the organization, recognized his own symptoms and confined himself to an isolation ward. Doctors who know and have worked with Brantley held a news conference in Fort Worth, Texas on Monday, saying he was dedicated to global health in challenging environments.
Kent is confident that he followed all of the appropriate protocols and never breached protocol. So the source of this infection is uncertain at this time, but he took great care for himself and for the others under his supervision while he was running that unit. Kent is in isolation now in Elwa. His symptoms developed on Wednesday with fever and headache, abdominal pain, and have progressed. He asked that I not speak in detail about his symptoms and the current state of his illness, so I won't do that today, but to say that he is progressing in the stages of the Ebola infection and is under the care of the